Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning, Attorney General,
Hey, everyone.
Lieutenant Governor, Secretary of State. Good morning.
Morning.
I now call this meeting of the Executive Council to order. As Chair of the Executive Council, I have determined that the requirements of Minnesota Statute Section 13D.015 have been met, and we will conduct this meeting via interactive technology. Because this meeting is conducted via interactive technology, all votes will be counted with a roll call. I would now call for a motion to approve the draft minutes of the Executive Council meeting held on August 14th, 2024.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote of all members. Lieutenant Governor Flanagan.
Aye.
Secretary Simon.
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries and the minutes are approved. I would now like to recognize MMB Assistant Commissioner Jennifer Hasimer to present a request to approve collateral for state funds. Assistant Commissioner Hasimer, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Great. Thank you, Governor, and good morning to members of the Executive Council. For the record, I'm Jennifer Hasimer, Assistant Commissioner at Minnesota Management and Budget. So this first agenda item is requesting the approval of new collateral used to secure state funds on deposit at two of the state's banks. Executive Council approval is required by Minnesota Statute Section 9.031, Subdivisions 2 and 3. The collateral listed on your memo represents the replacement of previously approved collateral that is maturing. I'm requesting your approval of this agenda item and will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. At this time, is there any discussion regarding the approval of collateral for state funds? Hearing none, I would call a motion to approve the request.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote of each member. Secretary Simon.
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. I would now continue to recognize Assistant Commissioner Hasimer to present a request to approve a designation of state warrant processing services. Assistant Commissioner, you are recognized.
Great. Thank you again, Governor and members. So this request is a request to designate a warrant clearing account with Wells Fargo Bank pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 9.031, Subdivision 1. This account will be used to process and clear state warrants. Our current contracts with Wells Fargo and U.S. Bank are set to expire on December 31st, 2024, and the new contract period will run from January 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2029. MMB completed a request for proposal earlier this year to competitively bid out these services. And with this award, MMB will consolidate warrant processing services into a single vendor. One of our goals for this RFP was to add additional services to prevent fraudulent activity and to improve services to state warrant recipients. MMB was also able to attract better pricing terms through this competitive process and create administrative efficiencies by reducing the number of accounts and separate bank systems we need to manage. 4 large national banking institutions requested a copy of our RFP, and we received responses from 3. In order to provide the services needed by the state, the banking institution needs to be a large clearinghouse bank with the Federal Reserve. In making our recommendation to award to Wells Fargo for the next contract round, the evaluation team considered the firm's qualifications, their ability to meet our service requirements, the number of branch locations in the state and nationwide, and cost. Wells Fargo represents the best value to the state. I'm requesting your approval to establish a warrant clearing account with Wells Fargo Bank under the new contract, and will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. Is there any discussion regarding the request? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve the request.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote of each member. Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan.
Aye.
Secretary Simon.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. I would now like to recognize Department of Revenue Disaster Lead for the Property Tax Division, Eben Johnson, to present a request to designate Blue Earth County Cottonwood County, Le Sueur County, Rice County, and St. Louis County as disaster areas for property tax relief. Director Johnson, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, members of the council. My name is Eben Johnson. I work in the Property Tax Division at the Department of Revenue, and I'm here today on Blue Earth, Cottonwood, Le Sueur, Rice, and St. Louis counties on their behalf to present their applications to be designated as a disaster area pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 273.1231 Subdivision 3 due to the flooding that took place earlier this summer. These counties have completed their reassessments of all damaged property and meet all the qualifications of this designation. This designation will provide property tax relief to homesteaded property, more generous relief to heavily damaged properties, and will allow the state to reimburse the county for these credits and abatements granted to property owners. I request that the council approve these applications, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. At this time, is there any discussion regarding the applications for Blue Earth, Cottonwood, Le Sueur, Rice, and St. Louis County to be declared disaster areas for tax purpose? Hearing none, I would propose that we entertain all 5 applications together as a single motion. Hearing no objection, I would call for a motion to approve this request.
So moved.
At this time, I'd call roll call vote of each member. Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan.
Aye.
Secretary Simon,
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
and I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Is there any further discussion from members of the Executive Council? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Now call roll call vote on the motion to adjourn. Lieutenant Governor Flanagan.
Aye.
Secretary Simon,
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. This meeting of the Executive Council is adjourned. We say goodbye to Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, and I would ask Secretary Simon if you would just hold. We're going to move to the Land Exchange Board, and then we'll bring you back for the State Board of Investments. I now call this meeting of the Land Exchange Board to order. As chair of the Land Exchange Board, I have determined that the requirements of Minnesota Statute Section 13D.015 have been met and that we conduct this meeting via interactive technology. Because this meeting is being conducted via interactive technology, all votes will be counted with a roll call vote. I call for a motion to approve the minutes of the August 14th meeting.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
and I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The minutes are approved. I would now like to recognize DNR Director Joe Henderson to present the proposed land exchange. Director Henderson, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Good morning, Governor, Land Exchange Board members. Again, Joe Henderson, Division Director for the DNR Lands and Minerals Division. The DNR has 3 land exchanges for you to consider today. Please refer to tab 2 in your materials for land exchange A0010016. This is a land exchange between the DNR and St. Louis County. It exchanges 6,140 acres of DNR acquired and trust lands for 6,736 acres of tax forfeited lands in St. Louis County. If completed, this exchange would consolidate land ownership, thereby increasing the efficiency and cost effectiveness of management for both the DNR and St. Louis County. The St. Louis County Board has approved the exchange project and the land values. All resolutions are on file as evidence that all requirements and steps have been taken to comply with the law prior to the submission to the Land Exchange Board for approval. Final approval is recommended for land exchange A0010016.
Thank you, Director. At this time, is there any discussion on the land exchange in front of us? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. This land exchange is approved. Director Henderson, continue on for the next one.
Please refer to tab 3 in your materials for land exchange B0010025. This project is an exchange of 40 acres of tax forfeited land for 40 acres of private land. There is a difference in appraised value, and the private party is willing to pay the difference. This exchange will remove a landlocked private parcel to one with legal access. It will consolidate tax forfeited lands into larger holdings for the state and the county. All steps have been taken to comply with the law for this exchange. A public hearing was held and no adverse testimony was received. Final approval is recommended for land exchange B0010025.
At this time, is there any discussion regarding the proposed land exchange in front of us? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
and I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The land exchange is approved. Director Henderson, please continue.
Please refer to tab 4 in your materials for land exchange B0010027. This is an exchange of 2 acres of private land for 2 acres of tax forfeited land. The land values are identical. This exchange will resolve an inadvertent cabin encroachment for the private party and will consolidate tax forfeited land holdings for the county. All steps have been taken to comply with the law for this exchange. A public hearing was held and no adverse testimony was received. Final approval is recommended for land exchange B0010027.
At this time, is there any discussion regarding the final land exchange in front of us? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The land exchange is approved. Thank you again, Director Henderson. I would now like to recognize U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Supervisory Realty Specialist Luke Anderson to present a request for approval of certified easement acquisitions. Specialist Anderson, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Governor and members of the board, thank you and good morning. I am Luke Anderson, and also on today's call is Tom Kerr. We are with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. May I draw your attention to the first page behind tab 5. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service requests authorization to purchase 32.49 acres of wetland easements and 1,055.56 acres of habitat easements on private property in the counties listed below. All proposed acquisitions have been certified by their respective counties. In closing, we request approval for these acquisitions to move forward. We stand for questions.
Thank you, Specialist Anderson. At this time, is there any discussion on the certified easement acquisitions? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve.
So moved.
I now call for a roll call vote of each member. Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The request is approved. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there any further discussion from members of the Land Exchange Board? I would now call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
and I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The ayes have it. The motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. At this time, we'll bring back Secretary of State Simon. I now call the meeting of the State Board of Investment to order. As Chair of the State Board of Investment, I've determined that the requirements of Minnesota Statutes 13D.015 have been met and that we can conduct this meeting via interactive technology. Because this meeting is being conducted via interactive technology, all votes will be counted as a roll call vote. I would now call for a motion to approve the draft minutes of the August 14th, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
I would now call roll call vote of each member. Secretary Simon,
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. The minutes are approved. I would now like to recognize Executive Director Schurz to report on SBI performance summary, the Executive Director's administrative report, and the public markets investment programs. Executive Director Schurz, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Good morning. My name is Jill Schurz. I have the honor of serving as the Executive Director and Chief Investment Officer of the Minnesota State Board of Investment. Today, I'll briefly review performance for the quarter ending September 30th, 2024. And Mr. Gary Martin, the IAC Chair, will present a number of investment recommendations that have been reviewed and endorsed by the IAC. As reflected at tab A of your board materials, as of the quarter ending September 30th, 2024, total assets managed by the SBI stood at $149.9 billion. Of that total, the combined fund assets were $97.6 billion. During the quarter, the combined funds portfolio benefited from the addition of $4.6 billion of investment returns, and the SBI provided capital for net distributions to members of $671 million. Also, during that period, state cash accounted for $28.8 billion of our total assets. Turning to two of our long-term performance objectives, the combined funds outperformed the composite index over a 10-year period and significantly exceeded CPI-U over a 20-year period. Over the quarter, we captured positive returns throughout the portfolio as global markets, while volatile at times, provided meaningful opportunities. As reflected on page 5, tab A, the overall combined funds portfolio posted a positive 5% return for the quarter and 20.2% return for the preceding 12-month period. Notwithstanding strong absolute performance, during the quarter, the combined funds portfolio modestly underperformed its composite index, principally due to the reversal in U.S. dollar strength, which adversely impacted the portfolio's currency hedging program. The portfolio experienced significant strength in its domestic equity program, returning 6.2% for the quarter and 35.5% for the trailing 12 months. The fixed income portfolio also performed well, delivering 5.1% for the quarter and 11.9% for the trailing 12 months. Lastly, the private markets allocation was also a positive contributor to overall performance, with private equity leading the way, returning 2.5% for the quarter and 9.2% for the trailing 12 months. The combined fund's actual asset mix was in line with all applicable targets. We would note that we are experiencing a modest underweight to private equity or private markets generally, as the pace of distributions has accelerated, but the pace of capital calls has not. Page 14 reflects our peer percentile rankings as of 9/30/24 within the relevant Tux universe, which reflects our ranking as top decile for the quarter, top 15th percentile for the trailing 12 months, and top quartile or better over all majority of time periods presented. With that, I'd be happy to pause and take any questions about the performance update.
Any questions? Or Auditor Blaha, you are recognized.
Thank you, and thank you, Governor, and thank you, Director Schertz. I think like a good Minnesotan, when you look at things going up, and you naturally think could go back down. So, I know we have a lot of protections, a lot of things built in for resiliency into our fund. Could you just mention a couple of those? Again, I think when times are good, you should always think about when they might not be.
Thank you, Auditor Blaha. I appreciate that question. It reflects in large part about how we think about the portfolio as well. The portfolio is equity heavy, which again means we will take advantage of strong equity markets. We will, however, also catch downtrends as well. To moderate that potential downside, we do have a 25% allocation to fixed income markets. As we saw in the past several years, it's not an absolute guarantee that fixed income markets will in all instances protect us, but I would note that within that allocation, we have a 5% allocation to cash and short-term obligations, as well as a significant allocation to protective U.S. government bonds. So we think that obviously if the equity market does have a downdraft, we'll catch a portion of that, but we will maintain sufficient liquidity and will protect our assets so that in all circumstances, we can always pay benefits.
Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, please continue, Executive Director.
Thank you, sir. Turning to the admin report at tab B. In the interest of time, I'd report that our annual audit is currently underway, results of which will be reported out to you upon completion. Among other important topics highlighted in the report is our annual budget and the status of any activity or actions with respect to Russia, Belarus, and Iran restrictions. With that, I'm happy to take any questions about the administrative report.
Any questions from State Board of Investment? Hearing none, please continue, Executive Director.
Mr. Chair, I'll turn the microphone over to Mr. Gary Martin for the investment recommendations endorsed by the IAC.
All right, thank you, and good morning, Governor and members. On Tuesday, November 19th, the Investment Advisory Council met with the Executive Director and her staff to review the SBI's investment results for the third calendar quarter of 2024, as well as staff's due diligence and recommendations for engaging an emerging markets equity manager in the public equity portfolio, as well as commitments to 6 private market investment funds. So with regard to the emerging market manager recommendation, the report is under tab C in your meeting materials. As a result of 2 manager terminations during calendar year 2024, the SBI's emerging markets equity portfolio is currently over-allocated to passive relative to active management, and the 4 remaining active emerging market managers are fully allocated. Staff believes, and the IEC agrees, that adding a new manager to the emerging market portfolio would support the goal of maintaining the portfolio's active management allocation. Staff proceeded to conduct an in-depth search for emerging markets managers using a very detailed and rigorous process. Specifically, they worked to identify the best manager from a group of high quality and highly differentiated managers. Working from an initial list of over 30 managers, staff interviewed 11 investment management firms and conducted detailed investment due diligence on 6 finalist firms. Staff reviewed their search criteria and the process with the IEC. They highlighted that there were several key considerations that led to its recommendation to include Fidelity in the emerging markets equity portfolio. These characteristics include a highly experienced portfolio manager with a demonstrated track record, a dynamic and flexible investment style with balanced factor exposures, a strong organization, and SBI's prior experience in working with the firm, and lastly, a competitive fee proposal. Based on our review of the materials and discussion with staff, the IEC unanimously endorsed staff's recommendation to retain Fidelity Institutional Active Management to manage a portion of the active emerging markets equity allocation for the SBI investment portfolio. That concludes my prepared remarks with regard to this manager recommendation, but I'd be happy to address any comments or questions that the members may have.
Are there any questions? And we'll do this too specifically on the emerging markets manager with Fidelity, and then we will go to the private markets as 2 separate ones. So the question at hand now is on the emerging market strategy around Fidelity. Any questions from members of the board? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to adopt the executive director and staff recommendations to negotiate and execute a contract with Fidelity Institutional Asset Management to implement its concentrated emerging market strategy. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I now call roll call vote of all members. Secretary Simon?
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
Auditor Blaha?
Aye.
I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries and the recommendation is approved. Chair Martin, continue on with private markets.
Great, thank you. So with regard to the private market fund recommendations, these are under tab D in your meeting materials. And again, as part of our meeting on the 19th, the IEC reviewed staff's due diligence and recommendations for commitments to 6 private market investment funds. These fund commitments totaled $1.025 billion and are listed on page 1 in the meeting materials. 5 of the commitment recommendations are with existing managers with whom the SBI has historically had very successful relationships, and 1 is with a new firm that would be a new relationship for the SBI. Our discussions with staff focused on each general partner's organization and staff, their investment strategy, the market opportunity, historical performance, as well as the fund's terms. Based on our review of the materials and our discussions with staff, the IEC unanimously endorsed staff's recommendations for commitments to each of these 6 private market investment opportunities, as we believe that each of these commitments would provide attractive risk-adjusted returns for SBI's investment portfolio. Governor, at this point in my prepared remarks, I was planning to provide a brief description of these investment recommendations. However, I want to be respectful of your time. Now, you've been briefed on this previously, so I'll defer to you as to whether I could walk through a description of each of these, or I'd be happy to just move to address any comments or questions that the members may have.
Thank you, Chair Martin. And I would remind members of the public, we are provided this information weeks in advance from that as we prepare for it. I would ask members of the board, would they like the chair to go through each of those, or are you comfortable with where we're at?
I'm comfortable, Mr. Chairman.
I am as well, Mr. Chair.
I think that's good. I think at this time, then I would entertain a motion to approve the private market recommendations.
So moved.
And I'll call roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison?
Aye.
Auditor Blaha?
Aye.
Secretary Simon?
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries. Recommendation is approved. Thank you, Chair Martin. At this time, we would normally take, SBI would hear from members of the public. For this meeting, we're not taking live testimony. We've asked members of the public to submit their testimony to the board in writing before this meeting. The SBI received 28 pieces of testimony that have been distributed to each of the members of the State Board of Investments to read and consider. We've made this change in response to concerns raised during the last several SBI meetings. In those meetings, members of the public felt constrained by the board ruling, particularly the need of grouping speakers together around the same topics to make sure that we stayed within a limited amount of time. This change gives more people an opportunity to submit comments to address the issues of their concern to the board. And now we appreciate the public's input. We read and consider each and every one of these submissions, and I'm grateful for that. At this time, I would ask the board if there are any further discussions before adjournment. Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I'll call roll call vote. Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
Secretary Simon,
Aye.
Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
and I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. This meeting of the State Board of Investments is adjourned. Thank you, Director, and thank you to board members.